The 555 timer chip can be configured in three basic modes: monostable, astable, and bistable. In my last video, we looked at how to configure the 555 in monostable mode, but in this video we'll focus on how to use the timer chip in the astable mode. We call it astable because, unlike the monostable mode, when we configure it this way, it has no stable state. Basically, that means that the output on pin 3 will switch continuously between high and low, or in other words, on and off, and will repeat that sequence until the power source is removed. It does this without any need for an external trigger. This re-triggering is basically achieved by connecting the trigger input, or pin 2, to the threshold input, pin 6. As you can see here, pin 2 and pin 6 are connected together. Also note that the single timing resistor that we used in the monostable circuit has been split into two separate resistor values, R1 and R2, both of which are connected to the discharge pin, or pin 7, as you can see in the schematic and also on my breadboard here. This mode uses the 555 as an oscillator which outputs pulses at a set frequency and creates a rectangular square wave signal, as you can see here. Let's take a closer look at how this circuit works. Note that the trigger pin, pin 2, is connected directly to the electrolytic capacitor. When we constructed the monostable circuit in the last video, the timer was triggered by a push switch that short-circuited the voltage going to pin 2. But in the astable mode, the timer is triggered when the electrolytic capacitor discharges. As soon as the voltage across the capacitor drops to 1/3 of the supply voltage, pin 2 triggers the 555 to start a new cycle. When the new timing cycle commences, the output on pin 3 is high, or on, and pin 7, the discharge pin, is open. This allows current through the resistor, resistor 2, and the capacitor, capacitor 1. This causes the capacitor to charge at the rate that's determined by the values of resistor 1, resistor 2, and capacitor 1. Then, as the electrolytic capacitor begins to charge, the voltage at pins 2 and pin 6 increases. As soon as the voltage at pin 6, the control pin, reaches 2/3 of the supply voltage, the internal comparator circuitry within the 555 chip causes the output voltage at pin 3 to go low. When the output at pin 3 goes low, the discharge pin, pin 7, is connected to ground within the 555, and that allows the capacitor to discharge through resistor 2. So the value of resistor 2 and the value of the capacitor would determine the rate at which the capacitor discharges. As the capacitor discharges, the voltage at pins 2 and 6 decreases, and when the voltage to pin 2, the trigger pin, drops to 1/3 of the supply voltage, the lower comparator circuitry inside the 555 is high. It sets the flip-flop again and causes the output at pin 3 to go high. The discharge pin, pin 7, is opened, and the cycle repeats over again. And that's it. That's what allows the astable circuit to oscillate and self-trigger itself on repeat. But let's take a look at how we can control and calculate the duration of each cycle. As you saw before, the astable output produces this rectangular square wave. The length of the high portion of the cycle we name T high. The length of the low portion of the cycle we can name T low. The sum of T high and T low we refer to as T, or the total duration of the wave from the start of one high pulse to the start of the next high pulse. The individual times required to complete one charge and discharge cycle, or in other words, the output high and the output low durations, can be calculated like this. Now, if you choose to calculate this yourself manually without using one of the many calculators that are available online these days, there's a few important things to note. Firstly, the capacitor is charging through both resistor 1 and resistor 2, but it discharges only through resistor 2. And that's why we need to add the two resistor values for the T high calculation, but we only use the resistor 2 value for the T low calculation. That's also why we need to double the resistor 2 value, but not resistor 1 when we're calculating the total time. Also, be careful when you're doing this calculation to convert the component resistance and capacitance values to ohms and farads. If you use a smaller resistor and capacitor value, you'll get shorter pulses and higher output frequencies. For example, if you use a 1 kilo ohm resistor and a 0.1 microfarad capacitor, each cycle would last just a few millionths of a second. You may have also noticed that if the two resistors are the same value, the signal will be high for twice as long as it is off. By using different resistor values, you can vary the difference between the high and low portions of the signal. And that brings us to something called the duty cycle. The duty cycle is the percentage of time that the output remains high for each cycle of the wave. If the total cycle time was 1 second and the output was high for 0.6 seconds of each cycle, the duty cycle would be 60%. So in other words, the duty cycle as a percentage is the time duration spent high divided by the total time of the wave. Now, with a typical astable circuit like this one, the duty cycle is always greater than 50%, and that's because the duration that the output remains high must always be more than the low output duration. For the duty cycle to be less than 50%, the capacitor would have to charge and discharge through the same resistance, and the only way to do that would be to remove resistor 1 altogether, so that the capacitor charged and discharged only through resistor 2. That would present a separate problem though, because you would end up connecting pin 7 directly to the voltage supply. With no resistance between pin 7 and your voltage source, the current flowing through pin 7 would damage the internal circuitry of the chip. There is a way around this. If you place a signal diode in parallel with resistor 2, as I've done here, the diode bypasses resistor 2 when the capacitor is charging. This means that the capacitor charges through resistor 1 and discharges through resistor 2. This gives you more control over both the charge and discharge time. If resistor 1 and resistor 2 are the same value, the capacitor will take the same amount of time to charge as it does to discharge, which would give you a duty cycle of 50%. The key takeaway here is that increasing the R1 resistor value in relation to R2 will increase the duty cycle. Increasing the R2 resistor value in relation to R1 will decrease the duty cycle. Now, if you do use a diode like this and you want to calculate the time interval, the duty cycle, the frequency, etc., you will need to make a slight adjustment to the formula. As you can see here, for the T-high calculation, it's now only looking at the resistor 1 value. The T-low calculation remains the same, looking at resistor 2, and then so on. It would remain the same for calculating the total time, the duty cycle, the frequency, etc. 555 astable circuits like this can be used for all sorts of applications, including producing signals for counter circuits. Lower frequency of say less than 10 Hz can be used to flash an LED like I've done in this video. If you were to use higher frequencies and kept your output as an LED, they'd be much more difficult to observe because the pulses are so close together, but you can use those higher frequencies for different things, including driving loudspeakers and piezo transducers. I'll demonstrate some of those applications in future videos. But that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. If you have a question, feel free to leave a comment. Please do click like and don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this soon.